Hey, folks, welcome to another edition of the Mental Health Podcast. This is Sanjay here, and I'm excited to have a children's book author, a startup enthusiast, Marc, with us, joining us from Canada. And I'm excited to hear from him and for you guys as well. I'll let Marc take it away. Hey, Marc, how are things with you?
Good, Sanjay. Doing excellent. Thank you so much for having me today.
All right. Um, you know, there's so much going on, and there's a lot of awareness based campaigns going on. But I guess I'll never get tired of asking this question. Um, in terms of like mental health, what has that been for you? And I'll let you give yourself an elevator pitch of sorts as well. So take it away from there.
Yeah, thank you so much. Mental health for me has been, it's been a catalyst for me to do many of the things that I love to do. As an entrepreneur, I love to create. I love to always start new things, and mental health has just given me the opportunity to, given my ability to express myself in these avenues and to go and try new different things, all to in the name of better mental health, but also to help people with their own journey and to connect people in different ways that I may have not connected with them in other ways in different mechanisms as well.
Definitely. You know, I think when I start thinking about mental health, and the first thing that sort of comes up is identity. And I feel like who you are matters more than what you do or how you sort of work around you as well. So, here's your chance. Can you talk a little bit about yourself? Where you are in your mental health journey, and then give people some insight onto who Marc is.
Yeah, that's no, I think identity is definitely something that is a core essential of ourselves. And I think that, we always have a sense of who we are, but our identity is constantly changing because I feel like everyone is the author of their own story. And we're constantly writing new chapters for ourselves. But, for me, being Italian Canadian is at the core of my identity. Intertwining with the warmth of family. Family is very important to me, and I had fantastic childhood memories from the '90s with nostalgia. Really forming a foundation for my mental health well-being. So I was always surrounded by family, supported like that. Lively family gatherings, lots of homemade pasta, Italian traditions. Growing upon these traditions, they really established an identity of who I was. But at the same time, this framework that established, it's supposed to be Italian people. When you think of a traditional Italian family, very strong family. So I think at the same time, when you think of strength, but at the same time, there's a flip side of it as well, because you can be strong on the outside and how you present yourself. And I think a lot of, communities do a great job of projecting such a strong, family bonds. But on the outside, everything may seem perfect. People are laughing, but on the inside, it can be a whole different story. So, for me, myself, in my 20s, I actually went through a bout of depression. And I remember those days I had, if people who know me know that I always have something going on. I'm a busy guy. I'm very active. I never, to me, to stay busy, I don't know how to stop. I'm always going. But when I went through depression, I didn't want to get out of bed. And I couldn't explain why. I was, there was nothing wrong in terms of what was going on in my life, but there was something wrong with me. I didn't have a bad family situation. I didn't have family or friends that weren't supportive. It was just a time in my life where I didn't know what I was doing, and I kind of felt lost. And I felt like the resources were there available to me, but I feel like with any mental health journey, is that I didn't get connected to me. None of those connections, those things that those people or those therapies, I didn't see that they could help me. I thought, no, no, like it was almost like admitting weakness, and I think that's part of identity and also struggling with your own mental health issues is realizing that it's okay not to be okay, but at the same time, I feel like if you want to help yourself, you're the only one that's going to help yourself. And at the end of the day, I did have a supportive network, and everybody was there. Family was there for me. But at the end of the day, I had to get up and I had to open the door and to realize, to put myself on that journey to self healing.
For sure. I think I've spoken to a bunch of people, and everybody who has their own sort of personal mental health struggle talks about the weight on your shoulders or the weight on the head that you have to sort of deal with on certain days where um, you lack motivation, or you
Of
sort of
course.
have difficulty in terms of self. Like there's so many things that are going wrong. But you can't seem to figure out which is the first thing that you want to sort of set right, or which is the first thing that you want to focus on to start solving, before getting into the place of doing other things as well. So and I like the fact that you mentioned in terms of having family around, because I feel like there are different uh, uh, ways to look at family, because for some people, I feel like family is a strong support system that they depend on or fall back on family for a lot of their problems, and for others it's a constraint too, because the family is this root cause of some of their problems. And can you talk a little bit about like what that means to you, and like how family has sort of supported you in these different situations as well? So
Yeah, for sure. I think one of my role models in life is my father actually. My father and I, we always didn't get along because we were always, we're both stubborn like that. Always two very prideful people, always clashing together and stuff. But I also look at my father as someone who never took the easy way out. He was always someone who worked hard to where he got to be, and he actually owns a successful restaurant in Toronto right now, called Benevega Cucina. It's a pizza restaurant, and he's there every day working at his passion. It doesn't matter if he has a bad day, physically or mentally. He's always there because he's doing what he's passionate about. And I think that's something that inspires me, is that, what, it doesn't matter how you feel, because we're all going to have bad days and good days. But if you're passionate about something, I think that's something that is like a flicker of hope that can help drive you through the bad days and the worst days, because it doesn't matter. My father is he's in his 60s and he works like he's in his 20s. Like, it's crazy. So much energy at the restaurant because that's his passion. That's what fuels him. And so I think that when you pursue one's passion, it significantly improves your mental health. When you engage in activities that you're passionate about, there's a sense of purpose and fulfillment. And the pursuit of this passion, it provides a channel for self-expression, creativity, personal growth, and this acts as a therapeutic outlet for stress and anxiety. So the joy that you feel from engaging in something that you love, it makes you feel better. You feel positive, and you feel like good about yourself, that what, I can get through anything. And that's something that it's helped me. I wrote a children's book with a message on mental health. I'm making a video game / app that helps kids with their mental health. I recently acquired a platform called Chapter Up that helps people connect with other people for mental health. These are all things that, there's so many things, but they're all part of my passions. And at the end of the day, mental health is something that, mental health is kind of the the vehicle for the journey of wellness and the ability that I'm able to express through my passions and stuff, right? So it's given me a fantastic opportunity to give back, but also at the same way to help a positive message through that.
Definitely. And I think one thing that I will take away from all of this is starting with this conversation, right? I mean, for me, this conversation was that kind of passion that drives me to say, hey, you know what? I am doing something that in my own way, I'm trying to spread around the message that, hey, you know what, people have issues with their mental health, where people are struggling with their own journeys and in where they're at in their own sort of mental health. Uh, one thing that I did want to explore a little bit in terms of the book that you mentioned, the challenge has been of late in terms of how do you talk to kids about mental health. And since you brought that up, can you talk a little bit about your own sort of thought process on writing the book, and why did you go about doing that? So
Yeah, so about 6 years ago, this is my second book that I wrote, so I'll just go back a little bit. But 6 years ago, I was in Europe, specifically Venice, Italy, and I encountered a dog that looked like a wolf. Me, myself, I'm a wolf lover. I love wolves. I have a tattoo of a wolf, several tattoos of them. And I love dogs as well, so it kind of fit in together. And I did some research, and I went up to this lady and I talked to her first. Sorry, I talked to this lady. I said, excuse me, what kind of dog is that? And she told me it's a Czechoslovakian Volchuk, or Czechoslovakian wolf dog, as it is also known. And I fell in love with this dog. I did research and everything as well. Met some people in Canada. Some of your listeners may have actually heard of the dog or seen it in movies. Because it does look like a wolf, so they do use it in movies where they need wolves. So I imported my dog Arya from Italy, and I grew up reading books. I used to read a book a week when I had more time, and I was inspired because people would always ask me, is that a wolf or a dog? It's a dog, even though it looks like a wolf. So I wrote my first book based on that experience. And so that was my first children's book. So the second children's book, it actually came during COVID, because COVID affected everybody very differently. To me, COVID never really affected me, because I always said to people, it doesn't matter, even with the pandemic going on, I said, rain or shine, the dog has to go out. So the dogs aren't aware of what's going on in the world, right? Like, this pandemic, everything is shut down. I still got to go let the dog outside. So, and it became a metaphor also for mental health for me, because even with COVID or without COVID, there were some days, I didn't feel like getting out of bed, and it was a metaphor for depression. And and to me, the story in the book is that the story is based on me and my dog, and it's a time where I don't want to get out of bed, but the dog's there. She's looking at me with her big golden amber eyes, and she's like, I need to go, tail wagging and stuff. So in the book, I'm really trying to explain how it doesn't matter rain or shine. You need something that makes you happy to get out of bed, right? Something that motivates you, something that inspires you, something that you love so much that you have a reason to get out of bed. So for me, my motivation each day is to walk my dog, so it doesn't matter if it's snowing outside, if it's raining outside, if it's cold, if it's hot, the dog is there. I have to be up every day. And that's my motivation to get up. So my message in the book is, for kids, if there's something that they love, just whatever that is, even if you can't do it or enjoy it, if you like playing baseball, if you like playing soccer, if you like to draw, any sort of activity, anything that makes you feel good, you don't have to do it every day. You're lucky to do it every day, but even if you do it for 5 minutes or an hour a day, just doing something each day that makes you happy, I believe is good for your mental health. For me, I'm lucky that I get time to, I love wolves. This is my dream come true. I'm living my dream when I wake up with the dog. Some days I don't want to walk her, but what? Obviously it's worth it and stuff. I've been doing it for 6 years now and everything. And you know what? Also in the book, there's a message that you think sometimes we build up so many things in our head. So in the book, there's me, oh my God, it's so crazy outside, like the rain and everything as well. You know, when you go outside, you know, the dog's jumping in the water. She loves water. It's not so bad. So I think as people, sometimes we give so much energy to these thoughts that they can consume us. But you know what? When we actually go outside, it's not so bad because it doesn't matter how much it rains. There always has to be sunshine after.
Definitely. And I don't know. I just want to reiterate some things that you mentioned, right? One thing I think, as your role model, your father showing his passion, fueling his energy, having something that you're connecting to, right? It could be a pet, it could be some activity that you love to do, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your full-time role, but just being able to spend some time during the day, and that sort of ensures your mind to be in a better headspace. So it keeps you going, and it keeps that sense of hope and energy, going on a day-to-day basis. um, One thing that I sort of notice in society today is that there are a lot of misnomers around mental health. So, can you talk a little bit about what are some of those that you have noticed and how they've impacted you as well? So,
Yeah, definitely. I think mental health is much like physical fitness, where it thrives on diversity in exercises. If you're just walking all the time, yeah, great walking is fantastic for you. It's great, but the body needs other sorts of exercise. It needs to be stimulated in different ways. You need to do different, just like you need to do different, incorporate different physical exercises into your regimen. You also need to do different mental health exercises. So that could mean, maybe listening to different music, watching a different a movie, reading a different book, things like that. And I think that what I've done in my career is, write a book. I'm working on a video game. I have a platform that connects people from a community perspective where they get to talk to therapists one-on-one. This is all different ways that can exercise your mental health. You're making yourself better, not just by, talking to a therapist. Talking to a therapist is great, but there's also other things that, people can do to supplement their health. And I think that's what's important, is that by embracing different diversity, different exercises in mental health to better yourself, not just relying on one thing, that's how you can get, improve your health and stuff. And it becomes much more fun too. So, people, when I love to go for, massages and everything, I thought, massages are just for when my back is hurting and stuff. But you know what? Sometimes I say, it's good just to go because it's a day I know where I go and I can feel better about myself, right? If I want to go to a concert or an art gallery, it's a different thing that I get inspired differently. You maybe something from a creative perspective, but it's also exercising your mind. It's that atmosphere of wellness, that positivity. So if there's one thing, is that people, I think there's a misconception that people think that it's a one size fit all kind of solution for mental health. But people are engaged in different ways. To me, mental health is, obviously there's different issues with it. But the thing that I think has to change and evolve is the way that it's communicated. People are engaged in different ways, different generations. Maybe some people, like to read a little bit more. Maybe some people like to, play video games. There's different ways to engage them. But at the end of the day, what's important is that, it's creating something for them that they can rely on and they can also connect with. Because you can say, okay, like when I was younger, I didn't want to go talk to a therapist because for me, it didn't do anything for me to help with my mental health. What really helped with my mental health was going to the gym, having that physical outlet. See, and I got better that way. So there's not kind of one size fit all. What important is obviously to keep that open mind of, okay, this isn't gonna work for me, but there's something else that I can try. And I think having that open mind, once you have that open mind to make yourself feel better, then you'll be open to discovering new passions as well and other things that can help you feel better about yourself in life.
Definitely. A few things that sort of resonated well was keeping an open mind, understanding that there may not be a solution for you, that people have recommended already, and maybe you'll have to figure out your own path to making yourself feel better. Just because something works for somebody doesn't mean it'll work for everybody. That not forcing yourself into any of the buckets, right? So that definitely hits home well, because I've tried a few options, and I've realized that, like you said, hey, you know what, going to the gym, sometimes being active helps people, because it distracts you from what you're thinking at the moment. And the other thing that also sort of came up was awareness, right? Understanding what you're feeling, understanding how you're sort of feeling at the moment. Not being able to express that can also be challenging, and that was one of my challenges in terms of dealing with therapy as well, wherein, like, you can only look at or present problems to which you have awareness around. And if you don't have awareness, you might get stuck into loops where you may not be able to express yourself well enough, where people can understand how to give you solutions to as well. You mentioned a little bit about gamification, and so one of the startups that you're sort of working on as well. So can you talk a little bit about, like, how you see mental health and gamification go together, and, like, what's your sort of perception around it as well? So.
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, obviously playing Nintendo, Sega, and all those games, my parents thought, oh my God, you're rotting your brain, go outside, right? So I think there's a fine balance between gaming and mental health, because if that's all you do is game and you never go outside or socialize with your friends outside, then yeah, if I was a parent, then I'd say, yeah, I would tell my kid, go outside, go get some fresh air, but gamification definitely has benefits for mental health. Gamification has been around for a very long time. All it is introducing, a set of behaviors that you want a desired outcome for, right? So that's why I think that gamification, what can do is that it can actually teach kids better mental health habits and the way that in their day-to-day functions and how they interact as well. And I believe that in terms of like achievements, unlocking progress, I think that's fantastic, because kids today, especially, we're in a digital age, they learn very differently. And some people may not be everyone learns differently, and it's a good way to engage them in that way. So I've always been passionate about gaming and creating games. So about a year ago, 2 years ago, I had an idea. I said, you know what, I want to help kids with depression through video games. Depression is such a complex issue where there's no single one kind of fix or solution to it. Obviously, every person's case is unique. So I thought to myself, okay, let me take a step back. Let me look at what's the basis of good mental health for youth. And so I looked at studies, did a lot of research, and I found that if you have a proper diet, you're getting enough sleep, and enough exercise, then your mental health as a kid, it will be. I'm not saying it'll be perfect, but it's okay, right? You're not suffering as much as perhaps other kids who are perhaps eating too much sugar. They're not getting enough sleep, not enough physical exercise, which can lead to other physical and mental health issues with that. So I created a concept where it's called Mio Mostro, which means my monster. And it's a Tamagotchi like interface game where I called it My Monster, because I believe that mental health isn't a monster that we should be afraid of, but it's something that we should control. Everybody has a mental health monster. And if you feed it with negative emotion, then it's going to take over you. But if you feed it with positive thoughts, positive, good food, good exercise, it's going to be happy. Your monster is going to be happy. So in this game, through mini games and gamification, it actually teaches kids. There's a monster for sleep. There's a monster for like a health monster, like a food monster, and there's also like a monster, like physical like activity monster. So it teaches kids through mini games on proper activities. So say for like the food monster, if you feed it bad junk food, the monster's not going to grow. But if you feed it good food, it's going to grow. So it's teaching kids that, hey, it's through gamification, this is good behavior and good life skills that will contribute to your own mental health. And it also progresses through a journey. It tells kids that it's okay not to be okay. Everybody has a monster. It's not something to be, I think years ago, even today, there's still a stigma saying, oh, if you have a mental health issue, you're a monster. So you know what? Everybody has mental health issues, but it's the way that how you control it and you own it. And having that sense of ownership and that master over that monster, it puts the power back into you. And it's creating a conversation with kids and saying, hey, it's putting a positive spin on it. It's not so much as a negative monster, but it's like a Pokemon, like a friend. It's like something that we can use to our advantage and help we can learn and grow together with it.
Definitely. And I think I look at it more from the angel and the demon. I guess you're referring it more from the monster side, and I thought that was an interesting take, because people always have the evil demon sitting on one side of the shoulder, and
Oh
the
yeah,
other side there's the angel
yeah,
saying, hey, you know what, do these things, and you're gonna be better off. And there's this other guy saying, hey, you know what's the benefit, right? I mean, like,
yeah.
it's not going to work, or that you're going to suck at it, right? And there's always this duel happening, and based on the time of the day, or based on your own sort of energy level, or based on where you're at in your own sort of journey, one of the sort of sides sort of is dominating at any point in time. And I like that idea of like feeding the monster the right things, so that way you encourage people to gamify their way in as well. So I mean, one thing that I sort of struggle myself, me being an immigrant, and you talking about your Italian and sort of Canadian heritage. Can you talk a little bit about, like, what that means to you, and like how that sort of, what people don't see when they see Marc as an Italian Canadian versus being somebody who's like born and brought up in sort of Canada alone, or like not having different heritages as well. So any thoughts that sort of come up for you?
Yeah, I think important part of it is the sense of family and the sense of duty with it. And I think that any immigrant family that comes to any new country, it can be a struggle sometimes of maintaining old traditions and new traditions as well, and not wanting to disappoint the parents. And that can come with a big burden, I think, for first generation immigrants, the sons and daughters of immigrants as well. My father's an Italian immigrant. He was born in Italy and came to Canada. So I'm the son of him. So there's expectations to obviously grow, and they want that for the next generation and everything. So I think it's also an internal struggle, and it contributes to your mental health. Is that at the end of the day, everybody wants to make their parents happy, but at the same time, there's also that desire to do your own thing, right? So with that, it's you don't want to disappoint your parents, but you also want to do your own thing. So how do I balance that? How do I, as a first generation Italian Canadian, how do I balance those two things? And obviously, growing up, my one of the things I can tell you is my sense of identity. I didn't go. My full name is Marcangelo, and I was ashamed of that name growing up, to be honest with you, because I thought, oh, it's too Italian. I just want to be Marc. I just want to be like a normal Canadian boy. Well, what is normal? Normal's overrated. So, I use Marcangelo when my author name is Marcangelo because it sounds a little bit more fancy. But, and I think that comes back to the identity, right? My brother's name is Chris, so I always joke with my parents. I say, oh, I'm the firstborn, so I get the long Italian name, right? But so when people say, oh, like, what's your full name? I say, oh, it's Marcangelo. They're like, that's a crazy name, because even in Italy, it's not a common name. The story behind the name is that, my father wanted to name me Angelo, and my mother wanted to name me Marco. So they combined it. And funny enough, I have two cousins in Italy, one a year younger and one a year older. You know what their names are? Marco and Angelo. So I'm like the middle of them. So it's funny story like that. But that goes back to identity, right? And I think that's a struggle with it as well. And having that identity and just coming to terms with it is something that, I think it's always going to happen. There's a lot of, kids coming, a lot of coming to Canada, coming to the US that are immigrating here for the first time. They may have a different name, a different sense of identity that's not cool or stuff like that. But at the same time, I think, you go through a journey of self-discovery where you want to keep the traditions of the past and everything too. So, growing up, I hated going to Italian school on Saturdays because I would miss my favorite Saturday morning cartoons, one of them being X-Men. Now I can watch it anytime on Disney Plus, but I hated going to Italian school. But I'm very, very thankful because out of all the grandchildren in the family, I'm the only one that can speak it fluently, obviously with an accent, but I can read Italian, I can understand Italian, and I can speak it. So I'm very grateful looking back now through growing up with that identity and everything. But that's something that when you're younger, you don't appreciate, but as you get older, you appreciate it. So looking back, what I would tell my younger self, I don't think I would say, keep the name. I think I would tell, Marcangelo, go by Marc, because going by my full name wouldn't make me go through the struggles that I did before, coming back to it and having that sense of discovering my identity again. It was like growing up almost Italian twice, because I went through a phase where I used that name and I did more research about the Italian Canadian community in Canada, in Toronto specifically. And, my first book, it did actually have an Italian Canadian connection to it. So I translated it into an Italian, and I was lucky enough to donate copies of it to Italian Canadian schools in Canada and Toronto that actually taught Italian to English people.
Definitely. And I think you mentioned something that has been on my mind of late as well, wherein like language as a form of identity, right? Wherein like a lot of people who move to a different country or who are first generation born here, they don't feel the need to learn the language of their own culture, because like they don't tend to use it as often outside their own homes, or if you have siblings around, or cousins around, you tend to engage with them in the language, but otherwise you don't usually need to know the language at all. And people tend to sort of forget where they come from, and people tend to forget what it means to be from a particular community as well. And one thing that I also notice is like, as different cultures merge, one thing that you see is it is sort of becoming a blend of sorts, as not as much as the roots of the culture there is. Just wanted to get your take on it as well. Like, where do you see this sort of moving forward, and like what are some positive and negative sides to sort of creating a blend of having your own sort of culture, just being Italian versus being an Italian Canadian, and how that sort of impacts people as well? So
yeah, I think there's obviously positives and negatives, but for me, I think it's more positives than anything, because it gives an opportunity to introduce new cultures and connect people that may have not experienced it before as well. For instance, I have a Japanese friend. I recently traveled to Japan a couple of months ago, and it was my first time in Asia, and I was totally culture shocked. I was like, oh my God, like, things are so different here. I thought it was, I made a joke with them. I said, it's not real. It's like a video game simulation because of the size of everything, the convenience, like everything was so futuristic to me, right? And it was a fantastic experience. But on the flip side, he's never experienced a traditional, we grew up Catholic, kind of traditional Italian Canadian Christmas and everything. So for us, Christmas Eve is very big. And I actually got to host him at my father's house. He was there for an Italian kind of Christmas, and he was wowed. He was like, "Oh my God, this is my first time celebrating Christmas with the family." He said, he loved the food, he loved the jokes. We all got to celebrate together. And at that table actually was people from not only the Italian, our family, but other people that my dad knows from different cultures, and from all different parts of the world too. And we all celebrated together. It didn't matter what the holiday was. It didn't matter what your religion was. What mattered is that we were together, and it didn't matter like where we were from, like political beliefs. Uh, you know, uh, it, Everybody was one there, and that was nice. At that dinner table, we were all friends and family. And I think that that's important, is to have that open mindset of being accepting of new traditions, and creating new traditions with the new generation and the old generation. I think if you hold on to too much of your old traditions, then that blocks you from being able to accept new ideas, being able to accept new things into your life. And I think that could be the only negative. If you're too fully enclosed in your community, how do you know what's going outside your window if you never go walk down the street and you talk to somebody different day to day, right? And I think that's something that people need more to do, is to be more open and go experience different cultures and different worlds. Because the place, you make friends, and I've traveled in a lot of places all over the world, and I've been lucky to make friends in each place that I've traveled to, and many memories. And it doesn't matter where you go, you can always have a laugh with somebody, right? A smile is universal. Is a universal language that requires no translation.
Definitely. And I think that's a great way to summarize it all, right? Wherein like people are genuinely looking to connect. It doesn't matter where you start from, doesn't matter where you are in the world. All people are looking is trying to connect with each other. And like you said, most of the non-verbal communication is common amongst people. Everybody just wants to smile. Everybody wants to look at you in the eye when you talk to them. So that way they don't feel that, people are looking down on them, or people aren't paying enough attention. And that sort of creates that comfortable space where everybody feels included as well. And going back to the question itself, I feel like it all ties well together, where you say needing that space or holding that space for different communities to come together is a great sign in itself. And it's not necessarily something to be scared of, but to add on to your traditions, rather than saying, hey, you know what, I'm letting go of something. It's more of being open to possibilities and traditions, which just might, enrich your own experience. I ask people this question, wherein like, what is, one quote, one song, one thing that sort of perks you back up when you're sort of feeling down? Anything that you have, either in your local language, preferably if it's in your local language, or in English, something that comes to mind when you're feeling low, and you want to, and when you read that out loud, or when you hear that song, it just gives you that sense of energy boost as well. So
Yeah, so there's one word that I love soccer. Um,
Mhm.
it's a sport I follow. Obviously being Italian, I love soccer. My favorite team is Roma. But there's one word that I only found when reading like soccer match like highlights, or when I would watch a soccer match, and it's a word that they use to describe a player's fighting spirit. It's the soccer player that always gives it their all on the field. They leave nothing to it. They're a very gritty, they're a very determined person, also stubborn like me. And the word is grinta. It's spelled Grinta. And the way it's
Mhm.
translated in Italian is literally grit or determination. Believe it or not, I have that tattooed on my wrist. And it's, for me, it's a daily affirmation. It's a funny word. I look back at it, so why did I get this tattooed, right? Like some of those tattoos I have some regrets of, not too many, but it's a good motivator to me, in saying that people know me, that I have a fighting spirit, and it doesn't matter how low things will go. I'll always find a way to get back up. To me, I have this quote that I love, and it's not how hard you get knocked down, but it matters how you get up. And to me, that's something that is very important. That it's a rallying call. I think we need to have that, find that spirit within us, just to dig a little bit deeper and to get out of bed, to get out of those dark places. Like I said, like life isn't perfect, right? But at the same time, if you give in, then I think that's when that's when you're in a dark place. But it's that fighting spirit. Every day is going to be a new opportunity for you to do what you love at the end of the day, right? To pursue your passion, to have that smile with family, to have those laughs, to enjoy those memories.
Definitely. I don't think there's a better way to end the conversation, but on a leaving note, I just wanted to ask you, like, if there is somebody looking for inspiration on the call, or something that you want to, leave as a quote for somebody looking, or, looking for that sign, what would be that from you? And yeah, so.
Yeah, so I've been lucky to do a lot of things, create a lot of things I love. When people ask me, how did you write a book? They're like, oh, it's so hard to write a book, and I tell them, I said, you know what? If you don't try, the answer will be always no. That's my philosophy. We put up these mental blocks in our head that we'll never be good enough to do something. We're our own biggest critic. But to me, if you don't try, the answer will always be no. If you do it, you know what? It may not be the best. It may be fantastic, but at the end of the day, you'll feel good that you did it. And so when you want to do something else, the challenges become a little bit easier to do, because you know what? You're like, hey, I've been here before. I had some self-doubt, but let me go for it. It may turn out to be a disaster, but hey, you did it, and no one can take that away from you.
Definitely. And yeah, thank you again for your time. The conversation has been delightful, and I'm sure a lot of people will take a lot away from this. And my hope is somebody who's feeling low, who's feeling that, sense of, mental block that you were mentioning, can, listen to this and just feel that, little nudge towards, doing something. And I guess I'll just say, andiamo, right? Like they say, let's go.
I love that, Sanjay. Your Italian was perfect, better than mine.
So I'll just end that on that note. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Sanjay.